Okay, now let me preface this video by addressing the elephant in the room. If I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking here about my favorite cuisines, my favorite international foods. And yes, I mean, there is an obvious accusation of hypocrisy that some people could make. It's like, oh, you've had all these amazing cuisines from around the world because you live in a multicultural place and yet you shit on multiculturalism. It's like, well, yes, it's kind of like that old meme, which is actually, I think, pretty much a leftist meme that whole you criticize society and yet you live in society. How convenient, or however it goes. Like when the guy says, "Oh, I think we should improve something," and the other guy says, "Oh, you criticize society and yet you also live in society. How convenient. Also, I'm very intelligent." Blah blah. Yeah, that whole meme. It's kind of like that. It's like, okay, I criticize globalism, I criticize multiculturalism, but am I willing to reap the benefits of it, even though I ultimately believe the drawbacks are greater as a net whole? Yes, I am. If that makes me a hypocrite, then so be it. And yes, I acknowledge the fact that if we lived in a society without multiculturalism and globalism, we probably wouldn't have access to as much like top level international cuisine from all around the world. And again, it is a sacrifice I would be willing to make, like to be able to live in a society where I feel that my own people are the overwhelming majority. Yes, absolutely. That would be a sacrifice I would be willing to make. That being said, okay, enough with the fucking disclaimer. What are my favorite international cuisines? So I'm going to rank the top 10 anyway. Now, when looking at this, I have to look at these cuisines like holistically, and I can't just like if there's a certain cuisine that has one really good dish, it's tempting to rank it highly, but I just can't because I have to look at all around like different types of foods from the same country. So anyway, yeah. Um, Number 10 would be Indian. Now, I actually do think Indian cuisine might be a little bit overrated, but nonetheless, I do have to contend like it is very tasty and there's a wide variety of different dishes. And that alone puts it on the list. I don't think it's the best of the best, but I do think, yes, it can taste pretty good. My main issue with Indian cuisine, it's not really a taste issue, it's not really a quality issue. My main issue is the fact that as someone with not allergies, it's not the safest cuisine to eat, frankly. A lot of Indian restaurants are very lax when it comes to um, just understanding what nut allergies are and how they work, and even understanding like really just like in every way. But anyway, enough about that. But I do have to contend, yes, Indian food is delicious. Like, I mean, most of it, I don't know the name for everything, but Indian food tends to be kind of like Chinese food in that a lot of it is basically like meat with sauce, and then there's also rice. So that's often the main components to Indian food, and yes, it is delicious. So yeah, I'm gonna put Indian at number 10. Um, Number 9 would be Colombian slash Venezuelan food. Now, I don't know for the life of me which country originated these dishes, but yeah, I mean, Colombian and Venezuelan food it's underrated and it is pretty delicious. Like foods like arepas, for instance. If you haven't tried arepas, it's kind of like a sandwich made out of cornmeal. It's really good, and there's a whole different variety of different types of ingredients that they put into them. And patacon is also kind of like a sandwich made out of plantains. That's really good. Yeah, all around like Colombian, Venezuelan food. It's underrated and it's really delicious. So I would definitely recommend it. Number 8, I'm gonna say Middle Eastern food. Now again, Middle Eastern can mean a lot of things, but I'm talking about like basically like shawarma and like falafel and stuff like that. Like yeah, it's really delicious. It's really good. I don't know which particular country can claim these dishes, but yeah, can't go wrong with it. Like it is pretty delicious. Number 7, I'm gonna put as Japanese food. Now Japanese food I think is the most unique of anything on this list. And it's very like there's a great variety. You can get all kinds of creative dishes. Some that I don't even know the name of. Like Japanese buffets are amazing just for the sheer variety of food that you can eat. Um, the reason why it's not higher on the list is it's not something I always crave. It's something like I have to be in a particular mood for, I guess. Like it's not something that I would like eat on a regular basis, but I do have to admit it's very different. It's very unique. And especially like some of the fusion types of Japanese food are kind of cool, like sushi burritos and like Brazilian Japanese food like tamaki and stuff like that, like hot rolls, which you can't really get anywhere other than Brazil that I've found. But yeah, I mean, Japanese food, yeah, it is really good. Like, I mean, it's not something I'd want to eat every day because it's a bit weird. Like, Japanese food is fucking weird, but it is tasty. So yeah, I'm putting it at number 7. Number 6 is Greek food. So like gyros, souvlaki, moussaka, pastisio. Greek food is interesting because it tastes kind of a bit like a halfway medium between Italian and Middle Eastern food, which makes sense given the geographical location of Greece. Yeah, I mean, all things considered, it's very tasty food. It's something that I kind of always feel in the mood for, you know, like I could eat it pretty much at any time. So yeah, number 5 on the list, very similar part of the world, Turkish food. So that would include pide, which is like Turkish pizza, which is fucking amazing. Also like, there's Turkish moussaka, beiti, lahmacun, kebab. I guess kebab is like there's things called kebabs from various other countries, but doner kebabs, as we like, I think are Turkish in origin. And also like manti, is it manti or mantu? No, manti is the Turkish version, like the dumplings. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff from Turkey. Yeah, you really can't go wrong with Turkish food. Like it is pretty delicious. I am not gonna lie. So don't remove kebab from the dinner menu. Number 4 is Chinese food. Now, I'm gonna preface this by saying I really mean like kind of like Americanized Chinese food. I'm not that familiar with authentic Chinese food. Well, I mean, to be honest, the distinction is a bit blurry because I have gone to some Chinese restaurants that feel very much like they're like fresh off the boat, like owned by like people who barely speak English or don't speak English at all, and where most of the customers are Chinese. So it's like, again, it can be hard to tell like if like what constitutes authentic Chinese food and what doesn't. But nonetheless, like, yeah, Chinese food, it is delicious. We have something called the Mandarin Buffet here in Ontario. It's amazing. You can just get like so many different types of Chinese food. It tastes so good. Yeah, again, like with Indian food, a lot of it is meat with sauce, like different variations of that. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously other types of Chinese food too. But I think like dim sum, yeah, dim sum is often pretty good. But yeah, I mean, Chinese food is, you know, there's a lot can be said for it. Like it is really good. Next on the list is Mexican food at number 3. Like we all know what Mexican food is, like tacos, burritos, like quesadillas, etc. You know, like nachos. Like Mexican food is just so delicious. Like, I mean, I always love to eat it. It is so tasty, and it's very much like, okay, it's the one thing on this list where it's like, even, you know, if we were a totally monocultural society, we'd still have Mexican food because it's just so ingrained into our culture at this point that it's like, frankly, yes, even like wasps are getting good at making Mexican food just because like it's just so ingrained in our culture throughout North America. Like Canada and the US, like really all the entire continent. Like it's very much a staple of what we eat. Like you find Mexican food a lot at even places that aren't explicitly Mexican restaurants, and often high quality too. So it's like yeah, it's just it's a very ingrained part of our cuisine, and it's just it's so delicious, so tasty, love it. So yeah, second on the list is and one thing I should say about Mexican food, I get that there's a difference between Tex-Mex and like Southern Mexican food. I mean, I've had both. I would say I probably prefer the Tex-Mex variety overall, but I still think Southern Mexican cuisine is still delicious. Like it's the same types of dishes often. It's just slight variations in how they're prepared, what types of exact ingredients or what quantities or whatever, but it's the same basic types of dishes. Yeah, but overall, I think Tex-Mex is more. That's and as I said, when I say what's ingrained into our culture, it's more the Tex-Mex variety that is ingrained into our culture. Uh, but yeah, I mean, yeah, Mexican food's amazing. Number two on the list, I am putting American food. Now, again, there's some obvious debate over what constitutes American food and what doesn't. Like hamburgers, for instance, they have a German origin in like the type of meat being used, but yet the ingredients all put together is more of an American invention. So I guess you'd probably say it's more of an American food. And same with like certain things like Chicago deep dish pizza. Like obviously pizza's from Italy originally, but I would say not just Chicago style pizza, but American style pizza in general is pretty different from the original Italian pizza. Um, Enough that I think you could argue it's part of American cuisine. And also like there's like fried chicken, um, like American style breakfast, southern like chicken sandwiches, hot dogs. Like again, it's derived from a German food. Although German sausages are pretty damn good too. But yeah, I mean fair enough. So there's some debate over what constitutes American food, but I will just say put together it's all pretty fucking tasty. Like I mean, it is hard to beat and there's just so much different types of food that fall into it. So I'm going to have to put American food as my number 2. And number 1, this will probably come to no one's surprise, is Italian food. As I said, American pizza is different from Italian pizza. I love both. Italian pizza is also amazing, and so is pasta, lasagna, like so many different types of foods that come from Italy. Like whenever I go to Italy, I just eat like a pig. Like there's so much delicious food there, and often very high quality too. So yeah, I mean Italian food. That overall, it's my favorite type of food. My only criticism of Italian food is I think in some places they over rely on tomato sauce, like as opposed to like there are different types of Italian sauces like Alfredo sauce and various others, and I think there could be sometimes a bit more of a variety of the sauces used. But you know what? Overall, though, Italian food is amazing, and there's a reason why it is so well loved and why it's considered a perennial favorite for so many people. So yeah, I mean, Italian food I'm going to have to put as the number 1. Like you just can't beat it. Now, as for honorable mentions, Ethiopian food, yeah, it's actually not bad. I'm not the biggest fan of the way that it's eaten, but the food itself is pretty delicious. I would just prefer it if it was like a taco or a wrap or something as opposed to like picking it up with the injera bread. But yeah, I mean, still pretty delicious. French food. Now, I find French food very hit or miss, but I will say, yeah, crepes are amazing. Like Breton style buckwheat crepes are really good. Some of the street vendor crepes I've had are pretty good too. So yeah, France gets credit there too. But other types of French food I've had can be hit or miss, to be honest. Canadian food also gets an honorable mention. Like we have poutine, we have donairs, which is like our version of the doner wrap. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a standard theme to Canadian cuisine, but Like with a lot of different types of national cuisine, you can see the similarity between one dish and the next. With Canadian cuisine, not so much. It's kind of a dissociated collection of different types of cuisine, but some of it is pretty good. And on a similar note, another national cuisine that's similar in that regard is Brazilian. It's just a mishmash, but some of it is pretty damn good. Like as I mentioned earlier, their Japanese food, but also their beef is really good. I've had some really good like beef in Brazil, like in burgers and in just beef by itself. Some of the sandwiches I've had there are pretty good, and they have like different variations like of like Lebanese food even and things like that. So it's like it's kind of a mishmash, but yeah, some of it is pretty delicious. Thai food I think is a bit overrated, but yeah, it's good. I mean, the coconut curry taste is definitely something different. Like it's a very different flavor. It's not something I'd want to eat every day, but yeah, as a novelty, as something different and unique to have once in a while, it is pretty tasty. But yeah, overall Thai food, it's just I don't know. It's not something I would ever make a staple of my diet, but yeah, it can be pretty delicious from time to time. Hungarian food, some of that's also pretty good and relatively obscure, not that well known. A lot of it has paprika in it. That's a distinct feature of Hungarian cuisine, but yeah, it's pretty delicious. Um, British food, underrated and gets too much shit. Yeah, British food, okay, when people say like there's that phrase like sex is like pizza. When it's good, and when it's bad, it's still pretty good. Yeah, that may be true for pizza, but it's not true for British food. British food, when it's bad, but when it's good, it actually can be pretty good. Like English breakfast, like um, Yorkshire pudding, um, Cornish pasties, like stuff like that. Like there's a lot of fish and chips. Like there's a lot of British food that actually can be pretty good. And final honorable mention is German food. Like again, a lot of American food is based on German food, but some of the like OG original German food is actually pretty good on its own right. Like some of the sausages I've had there, like that with sauerkraut, are pretty amazing. And like spatzel it can be pretty good depending on where you get it. It's like British food again. It's like it's not always good, but if you get it from a good place, it can be pretty delicious. So yeah, I would say yeah, those are my favorite cuisines and then some honorable mentions. So yeah. Oh, and one more honorable mention. I don't know what country I would attribute it to, but like generalized Eastern European cuisine, like not Hungarian, but like I don't know, Polish or Ukrainian or whatever, like pierogies, cabbage rolls, stuff like that. Yeah, I would put that as an honorable mention also. So yeah.